All right, everyone. I am returning, this time looking at a typical math journal page that I would have students completing in a face-to-face setting. Um, it's interesting for me to think about creating materials or curriculum in an online setting, and I often wonder if certain materials are provided, if the majority of the curriculum and materials are created by the instructor, and how that would work as far as making these resources accessible to all learners. It is important to point out that the Accessibility Handbook states that adhering to web accessibility guidelines while developing your online course will benefit all students, including those with visual, hearing, mobility, and learning disabilities. So I know in my Nearpod I talked about kind of trying to take into account all three of those learners. I'm going to do the same thing with this presentation, or with this resource, I guess I should say. When this resource in front of me is actually a scanned in or downloaded math journal page um, from the Everyday Math website. I took a look at it. You typically open documents, PDF documents, in Adobe Reader. However, you have to pay an additional fee in order to be able to access different accessibility features as far as reading aloud and things like that. When I looked at this, there is a feature in Preview. So I opened the document in Preview that allows you to click on speech and it will start speaking. So I'm going to click on that so you can hear how the speech tool would read this PDF document to a student with an hearing impairment.
Finding volumes of rectangular prisms. Lesson 2. Daytime. The cubes in each rectangular prism are the same size. Each prism has at least one stack SRB of cubes that goes up to the top. Find the number of cubes needed to completely fill each prism. Then use the formula to help you write a number sentence that represents the volume. XXX1 cubes to fill the prism. V equals B asterisk operator. H equals asterisk operator. 2 cubes to fill the prism. V equals L asterisk operator. W asterisk operator. H equals asterisk operator. Asterisk operator. 3 cubes to fill the prism. V equals L asterisk operator. W asterisk operator. H equals asterisk operator. Asterisk.
Okay. Hopefully you bared with that. When we look at that, I thought it did a really great job initially of reading the directions or the instructions on this page. However, it didn't, it kind of read SRB XXX, which is where students are typically supposed to look up information about this topic in their student reference book. However, downloading this from the website, it doesn't give you those pages, and it took those letters into consideration not in the correct spot. So it said at least one stack SRB, kept reading, and it did the XXX. Another thing that I would point out is that there's not really any separation when it moves from one question to the next. It also doesn't describe any of the pictures there. And when volume, I mean, this whole concept is very visual. They need to be able to see the shape. And I think that in order for this to be truly accessible in your alt image selection, you would have to type what the length, what the width, and what the height would be, possibly for students to be able to find the volume of these, or how many cubes there are on the length, how many cubes on the width, and how many cubes on the height. It also had a difficult time reading the formulas for volume as well. So looking at this, it doesn't really, when I looked at the UDL, the principles for universal design for learning, math journal pages do not typically cover a lot of those. It does provide a visual. It only allows students to respond in one method. Even this page I'm not too fond of because it forces them to use a specific formula for finding volume when I tell the students that a lot of times it's their choice, because area of the base times the height is so similar to length times width times height. However, so it doesn't really touch upon many modes of learning. For my students, I like to give them manipulatives. They could build these prisms out of unit cubes to find the volume, things like that. We use different colors to count the length, width, the height, and all of that. As far as in an online setting, I would see myself probably putting each one of these problems on its own slide and ensuring that you're following the PowerPoint, the accessible PowerPoint guidelines that are in the accessibility handbook, as far as creating proper headings, putting um, alt images in, things like that. Another thing that I thought was important to point out when I was looking at the accessibility handbook, and I'm actually going to bring that up, is when I looked at how to make accessible math and science content, I thought it was funny because down here it says in Microsoft PowerPoint and in a PDF that math is not accessible in either of those formats. And it goes on to talk about how you should use different math tools such as MathML or Math Markup Language, which is standard for online math accessibility, and you kind of use some kind of conversion process to put those math equations so that they can be easily read aloud for students with hearing impairment or even mobility impairment. Going along with mobility impairment, as far as putting a PDF or sharing a PDF with students, what we do with some students that have difficulty handwriting in class is they have their own computer that they carry around with them, and anything that's important for them to write a lot in, so our science packets or math journal pages, we scan them in as a PDF, and they actually use this awesome tool called DocHub that allows them to annotate over the documents. They can draw on documents, white out text, they can get rid of different things, and so much more. I mean, this is a really great tool. The majority of it is free. We only use free. Our learning support teachers use this to modify assignments and assessments for our students with learning disabilities and things like that. So it's a pretty great tool if you ever need to edit a PDF. There is a free version and a paid version, and I don't think any of us have come to needing to use the paid version yet. So I'm going to get rid of that. The last thing I want to show is that there is another way to utilize the Everyday Math program, and this is what I could see myself doing in a one-to-one setting or even in an online environment if that program would want to purchase a math curriculum that's set up like this. So I chose that same math journal page, and here it is presented where students could follow along, and if they had their own iPad, this would be on their screen. The great thing about utilizing the Everyday Math online version is that it does read each question out loud. So I'm going to go ahead and have you listen to that quickly to see the difference between the accessibility features in preview and as far as the attached audio in this program.
Finding volumes of rectangular prisms. 1. The cubes in the rectangular prism are the same size. The prism has at least one stack of cubes that goes up to the top. Find the number of cubes needed to completely fill the prism. Then, use the formula to help you write a number sentence that represents the volume. Blank cubes to fill the prism. V equals B times H. Blank equals blank times blank.
So as you notice, the audio that's attached to this slide in the program is a lot easier and clearer for students to follow along with. It gives you blanks where there are blanks. It lets them know whether they need to fill in the missing pieces. As far as mobility or students with mobility impairments, I tried to figure out how I could type in here with just using the keyboard, because I know some people have difficulty using the mouse, clicking on the mouse, things like that. Couldn't figure that out. Unfortunately, it does require you to click on the blank. The nice thing is, though, that it does pop up an on-screen keyboard. So for those people who have difficulty using keyboards, it's nice because this function relies heavily on the mouse, or even on a tablet, they would just be using their fingers to click on the answer. So for this one, I'm not sure how many cubes to fill the prism. You could click whatever number you want, enter that. Must not be right. So, oh, yep, there we go. So I entered that, obviously not correct. And then I could go on, and I know when I was listening that there were 4 blanks that I needed to fill out: the number of cubes to fill the prism, and then fill out my formula. As far as visual impairments, this program also does not describe the picture. So I'm not sure how you would go about making sure that students were able to clearly get an auditory representation of this shape. Again, I would think that it would have to include, there are 3 cubes that are in length, 4 cubes on the width, and 6 cubes on the height, something like that. And that's something that I would look forward to. And in the book, it says, Rice states that you might not think that these concepts apply to you, especially if you do not have control over development of the curriculum. So in my case, we do have a scripted curriculum that has us use these, but it's important to be proactive about making suggestions to instructional designers for improving students' accessibility. So again, how could we improve this page to make sure that students with visual impairments would be able to see the prisms and find the volume accurately? So hopefully that was a good comparison between the PDF version and our online version. I thank you for taking a look.